This is a dark moment in anarchist history. Right now, as I speak, the anarchist society, Rojava, who started the revolution in 2011, who established the philosophy under the principles called democratic federalism, or in other terms, the anarchist communalism, which was heavily influenced by more like Bookchin's idea, which itself is more like a subset of anarchist communism. Has a lot of similarities with revolutionary Spain, where it was under an anarchist communist society. Now they're facing threat of extinction after the rare and unique case of the United States supporting a left-wing group, let alone anarchist, like Rojava. If they not only have abandoned them when they defeated ISIS, but they're facing annihilation as an anarchist society with the combined might of the fascist government of Turkey and the Islamic extremists with the former Taliban member in control in Syria, who wants a united Syria under state control instead of a federalized, decentralized society as they promised to Rojava. The simple fact of the united might of Syria and Turkey trying to exterminate the Rojava revolution are two reasons. One purely capitalistic reason and the other more ideological reason. First is the geographic location. Rojava is part of the location that we call Kurdistan, by the Kurdish people, the longest ethnic slash racial slash national group in the world that doesn't have its own nation, around 40 million people. This homeland called Kurdistan. Rojava has achieved independence for the first time in over 100 years where the Kurdish people had their own independent country, while Iraq has an autonomous controlled government in their region of Kurdistan. Turkey has recently ended their clandestine war, with the PKK, who has been dissolved after years of torture by their leader Abdullah Öcalan. And Iran, basically almost non-existent, although they're still fighting in the mountains. Este, this geographic location of Kurdistan is rich with minerals and oil. This is the reason they want to destroy Rojava, because they have the resources that they need for their own status agendas. The other is ideological. They're against the very existence of Kurdistan itself. Iraq, Iran, Syria, and Turkey all collectively join to suppress the very existence of the independent Kurdish nation. It doesn't matter if the Kurdish nation become another fascist state or become what Rojava did, an anarchist society. Many anarchists will argue whether or not it's an anarchist society purely from pure free will definition. But in practice, they hold the anarchist value and they want a non-hierarchical, decentralized society. They are anarchists in my book. According to the sources in the Syrian government and other aligned states in Turkey, there is a ceasefire between the Kurds and the Syrian state. Well, the Kurdish sources are denying the ceasefire and still defending their holds, but they had lost two-thirds of their territory in the span of a week, again, with the combined might of Turkey, Syria government, and other Islamic extremist groups who are aligned with them. Let me give you a context of the people trying to suppress the Rojava revolution. First, we have the fascist dictator in Turkey, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, who is the leader of the Islamic Justice and Development Party, or the AKP. The AKP is a religious-based party to gain power since modern Turkey was established as a secular republic in the 1920s under Mustafa Kemal Atatürk. Erdogan himself is an authoritarian figure whose violent suppression of a protest in Istanbul caused massive counter-reaction lasting several weeks. I'm reading this from the Retro Wiki, by the way. His inflammatory, over-the-top remarks fueled the protests and led to a withering of support for demonstration. He has an autocratic style and thinks his majoritarian credentials give him carte blanche to treat anyone who opposes him as scum, making him the most powerful Turkish leader since Atatürk. He greatly reduced the power of the military with his frequently purges, i.e., weakening the only thing that can challenge his authority, and is in the process of introducing a new authoritarian constitution. So, he currently controls the largest military in Europe, as Turkey is regionally part of Europe and member of NATO, a coalition of vast European countries, and is the most powerful player in the Middle East. Outside the Gulf states, so Erdogan's authoritarianism worse democracy activists for good reason. He denies the existence of the Armenian genocide. His own code of personality, called Erdoganism, it's been similar to Putinism and Trumpism. It's basically this new global wave of fascism, which is a blend of authoritarian focus on nationalism, social conservatism, state capitalism, and government dominance in the media. His second line ultra-nationalist leadership led to the development of his own ideology. This phrase emerged when he won the 2011 general election, by describing Turkish writer as an ideology of elected dictatorship. Erdoganism is a form of populist authoritarianism, characterized by strong centralized leadership, the glorification of the Ottoman Empire, the support of religious government, opposition to secularism, weakening of the military's influence in politics, even though they're not as good either, suspicion of the West and all perceived Western values or beliefs, disdain for all institutions that challenge the strong man, such as check and balances of the very idea of separation of power, and the re-establishment of Turkey as a regional and potential continental power, all held together by his core personality. He holds significant control over the media, demonizes and marginalizes the opposition, especially the Kurdish people, tries to rig the election in his favor, like when he canceled a rerun of the Istanbul majority election, purged government workers and replaced them with his fanatics, arrests reporters and journalists for accurately reporting the news, frequently make bizarre speeches ranting about the West, pushes through social conservative policy to embolden his deeply theocratic base, and turns on his former billionaire supporters if they dare to challenge his decision or criticize his policy. He outright stated that he wanted to abolish secularism and to establish a neo-Ottoman empire. He also became the leading instigator in the proxy war within Syria. As early as 2012, when the civil war began, the CIA funneled weapons into the hands of anti-Assad forces from Turkish side of the border, using Turkish connection with the Muslim Brotherhood to do so. Ken Undar, the editor-in-chief of news outlet Cumhuriyet, published a video footage confirming that Turkish trucks ostensibly loaded with humanitarian supplies were actually filled with arms bound for terror groups fighting against Assad, and those trucks were operated by Turkey's National Intelligence Organization, or the MIT. Erdogan called for the life sentence to Dumbar for releasing the evidence. That same website distributed footage and transcript of wiretap to Turkish court accusing Turkish security forces of assisting in shelling and supporting operations for Nusra's Front, Al-Qaeda, in and around the Kasab, Syria, among other sites. Audio was released on YouTube showing Erdogan contemplating carrying out an actual false flag operation within Syria to justify open military intervention. He tried banning YouTube again after the audio was leaked. According to Reuters, he set up a secret base with Saudi Arabia and Qatar to direct vital military and communications aid to Syria opposition from a city near the border. It's the Turks who are the military controlling it. Turkey is the main coordinator of facilitator. Think of the triangle with the Turkey at the top and Saudi Arabia and Qatar at the bottom, said Doha-based source. In 2015, Turkey carried out a military incursion into Syria, supposedly to evacuate the tomb of Sulaym Shah, the grandfather of Osman I, the founder of the Ottoman Empire. The Mujahideen were allowed to entry to and form the Turkish border with Syria. Many of those foreign fighters, as well as armed opposition, ended up joining the Islamic State. It's not even a question anymore. Ankara directly assisted and cooperated with Daesh and other terrorist groups in Syria and Iraq against Bashar al-Assad. Furthermore, Turkey has openly supported Ara al-Sham and Shabab al-Nusra, both which are aligned with the Al-Qaeda. When the Islamic State besieged the town of Kobani, Turkey refused to help the Kurdish defenders, despite having thousands of tanks and hundreds of troops stationed hundreds of meters away from the battlefield. Demonstrating that demanding that Turkey comes to the Turks' aid were suppressed by the police, hundreds of Kurds were killed by Daesh before Kunabi pushed them out. After building was bombed by militants within Turkey, Erdogan ordered bombings on non-state Kurdish fighters in Iraq and Syria who were specifically fighting Daesh. This was after Ankara backed American lobbyists to try to block U.S. military assistance to Kurdish fighters in 2014. While there has been few token strikes against Daesh over the course of months, Erdogan is focusing almost all of his effort on Kurds instead, and is ignoring Daesh because he is that afraid of Kurdish independence. The Kurdish people make up 20% of Turkey's population, and they want their Kurdistan independence. In fact, on June 28, 2015, Erdogan reportedly urged parliament to strip lawmakers of immunity from persecution if they had ties to militants. This is a shot across the bow at the HDP, the secular progressive Kurdish opposition party, that defeated them in the 2015 election. If he succeeds, the HDP military police will be arrested, and Erdogan will call for early elections so he can get the supermajority needed to change the constitution in his favor. The vast majority of arrests after the bombing in Turkey were directed at Kurds and Erdogan's left-wing opponents. He has since blocked Twitter once images of violence against Kurds made the rounds online. To this day, Erdogan continues to fire tank shells at anti-ISIS Kurdish fighters in Syria on almost a weekly basis, destroying vehicles, wounding fighters. Also to reiterate, because it bears repeating, he is directly assisting ISIS. He also attempted coup back in 2016-2017, where he arrested many detainees subject to torture and rape or sexual assault, and denied them of food, water, and other necessity. And trying to and he managed to pass a new bill that concentrate all more power to himself, and straight up ignoring the Supreme Court. And then we have the new dictator of Syria, Ahmed al-Sharaa, who was a member of Al-Nusra Front, which is a, you know, Al-Qaeda Taliban-like organization. Este, and want to establish an Islamic State, although he considers himself a moderate Taliban, whatever the fuck that means. And he also the member of Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, a Sunni Islamic and jihadist military political party. And there's also be part of the Free Syrian Army, which is often considered the main opposition force, who were basically defectors from the Syrian armed forces and received U.S. training. But according to Washington Post, many of the ex-fighters switched for strategic purposes and they saw the Islamists more effective than defeating the Islamists. And many of his members abandoned secular resistance in favor of Islamic theocracy. And they're also backed by the Turkish government, which is now the governing government in Syria. So we had two fascist governments side by side destroying the Kurdish resistance movement. And Iran, who mobilized Hezbollah in Syria during the civil war, also may have joined as well. And they're using warfare. Like for example, water was used as weapon, heavily with being dams being destroyed and rivers being blocked to cause drought and other crimes against the Kurdish people. Right now, we must help the Kurdish resistance. But sadly, even though they are currently resisting and doing their damnness to maintain their autonomy, but it looks like the combined might of Islamic extremist factions around Syria, Hezbollah in Iran, the fascist government in Turkey, and now the moderate Taliban fascist government in Syria, if they are all united to attack this. Sadly, this sounds similar to what happened to revolutionary Spain, when the combined might of Francis Franco and the communists of Stalin's with the supervision joined forces to crush the anarchist revolution. Let's support these people. Let's hope they fight off long enough to maintain their independence in any shape or form, and not resort to be forced integrated into the Syrian national government. Long live Kurdistan, long live anarchism, long live for the independent Kurdish people.